Bar for Bar album reviews. Deante Hitchcock, Better. Better is the debut album from Atlanta rapper Deante Hitchcock. And although this is his debut, he's also released a couple of mixtapes that have gotten a lot of acclaim. Many of y'all, including myself, may know of him from his contribution on Dreamville's Revenge of the Dreamers 3 on the track PTSD, which is actually one of my favorite tracks on that project. Although Deante is from Atlanta, that doesn't mean that he leans into the trap sound that was made popular there. He actually fits in really well with artists like JID and Earthgang, who are also from Atlanta, but have their own distinct sounds. I actually wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up on the Spillage Village album that's supposedly being worked on right now. I mean, he might even be one of the new members that Earthgang alluded to. The first single from this album, titled How TF, featuring Black, dropped last November. If you know me at all, I'm a sucker for anything that has Black or Black is associated with, so I definitely gave it a listen like right away. Other people that also know me might just assume that I like the song because it's sad rap, and I'm a sucker for that too. What really surprised me with this track though is that although it features Black, who is basically an R&B artist, he wasn't on the hook. He actually just had his own verse. And this is different because normally Black has a little bit of the hook and then his own verse. Instead, Deante actually did the hook, and I realized after listening to the rest of the project that he's pretty good at making catchy hooks that don't get annoying after the first listen. The second single from this album dropped much closer to the actual release date, about a week or two before. It's titled I Got Money Now, featuring JID, and it's got a really interesting instrumental. To me, it sounded like they sampled Katamari Damacy, but then tweaked it a little bit. The Genius page doesn't say that's what was sampled, but I'm going to continue to believe that's what it was. In actuality, it samples Les Fleur by Minnie Riperton, but it's tweaked just a little bit, and enough for me to get confused. Also, there was a bit of a mix-up when the track originally dropped, because it has JID on it. Apparently the first version of it didn't have JID, but that was quickly fixed. Upon my first listen of this album, the thing that really caught my ear was Deante's voice. And this is just a bit of a side note, but it sometimes sounds similar to Mac Miller, which really threw me off. But it could also just kind of be like how D-Smoke sometimes sounds like Kendrick. I really have nothing else to say about that. It was just an observation. Starting with the intro track, I Remember, Deante does a really good job of telling us who he is. And I feel like this is really important to do with your first album, especially if you're not just trying to make pop music, because you want people to have a reason to listen to you. The chorus itself does a really good job, actually, because it explains a lot. It brings us into the mindset that he was in maybe a few years ago, maybe now, and how he, like many other artists that are just starting out, work through the struggle of not making money. I also like that it feels like this track was written within the last month or two, because the line that says, "Man, I ain't been to my barber in like 2 months, but I've been trying to get this tape right. Like, what the fuck is a break?" It could just be that he's doing what most artists do when they're in album mode and just let their hair grow out. But I just thought it was funny because it could be related to the quarantine and how everyone's stuck inside and can't go get a haircut. And that's why everyone's protesting. Anyways, going through the rest of the album, Deante keeps things pretty personal, where he talks about mostly his past and also his love life. Flashbacks does a really good job of running through a period in his life where it sounds like he was uncertain about what's happening, and questioning his faith. With this track, I also keep thinking that they flipped the track Japan by Heather B from the second Jamla record, but that might just be me. The next track on this album following Flashbacks, Give Me Your Money, completely disrupts the flow of the album, but it does it in a way that makes sense. The intro to it has young baby Tate saying, "I don't want to hear no more love songs. You got something I can dance to?" And although I don't really care for the song, it's whatever to me, but the way it was included was pretty funny. And I appreciate that it was in there just to kind of break things up. Same with the skits. They do a really good job of just kind of messing around. After that track, though, the album goes back to the sound that we've been getting for the first half with Circles. On this track, he talks about the issues with him and his significant other, and just the issues that they're going through with their relationship. It's with the second half of this album that we get a lot of content from Deante in terms of like him, I guess. The Shadow Man interlude, which really shouldn't be listed as an interlude because a lot of people would just kind of skip over it. It's a full-ass track. It really delves into his criticisms of himself. He says in the beginning, "You can't outrun your shadow, bro." And it's really introspective track, and I appreciate its inclusion, especially when he said something along the lines of, "I got all this talent, but I'm too lazy to use it." Also, the skit at the end was dumb funny. It's a tow truck. The last two tracks continue the same sort of sound and energy. The penultimate one, Growing Up / Mother God, is interesting. The first half, Growing Up, doesn't really have much to talk about. It's pretty straightforward. But the second half, where it switches to Mother God, it's really nice because it reminds people to love and respect women because everyone comes from a woman. He also shouts out all the women in his life, which I thought was really nice. The final track, Angels, brings everything to a proper conclusion. He takes all the things that he's talked about throughout this project and puts a positive spin on it. The first line says, "No, I'm not perfect, but my little sister thinks I'm the shit." It's like he's trying to remind himself to not be so hard on himself, and he's trying to be more positive in general. I think it's a really fitting end to this album, especially with like what we've gotten to that point. With all that said, I really enjoy this album. As a debut, it does a really good job of introducing us to Deante Hitchcock. From the beginning, where he's kind of uncertain, to where he is now and where he'll be going in the future. I really just hope I'm not overly hyped about this album and that everyone who actually listened to it as well really feels the same sort of way that I did. I know this kind of turned into a track-by-track breakdown, but I felt it was a little bit more appropriate on this because it's the debut album. Plus, I feel like he deserves the attention. My favorite tracks here are I Remember, How TF, Flashbacks, Shadow Man's Interlude, and Angels. Deante Hitchcock did a fantastic job with his debut, and I hope he continues to do great things in the future. I'm gonna go back and listen to his mixtapes now because I've been listening to Better since it came out, and I just need more music from him. That's all I got for the review. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this album, and if you've been following him before Better. Also, remember to like and subscribe, and check out all the other videos I do. Bye.